Do you remember Inspector Barnaby uncovering the darkest secrets behind Midsommer's peaceful villages? The biggest surprises, however, were waiting outside the show. One star walked away after 14 years, several beloved faces have since passed away, while a few went on to become Hollywood stars. This is what the cast looks like in 2026, and you won't believe how much they've changed. John Nettles as DCI Tom Barnaby. John Nettles was 54 when he stepped into the role of Detective Chief Inspector Tom Barnaby, the calm and methodical detective responsible for solving an extraordinary number of murders hidden behind the peaceful villages of the English countryside. The role lasted for 14 seasons and turned Barnaby into the heart of Midsomer murders, making Nettles almost impossible for longtime viewers to separate from the series itself. But nothing lasts forever. After 14 years of demanding location shoots across the countryside, the physical strain gradually began to take its toll. Nettles openly acknowledged that he was getting too old to keep chasing criminals across the screen, and rather than remain until the role became exhausting, he chose to leave in 2011 and allow a new generation to take over. His personal life also took time to find lasting stability. Nettles' first marriage to Joyce Middleton ended in divorce, but he later found a more enduring partnership with Catherine Seeley, whom he married in 1995. By 2026, they have been married for more than 30 years. Now 82, Nettles enjoys a much quieter life in Devon, spending his later years writing about history and lending his unmistakable voice to documentary projects. And Midsomer Murders was only part of his remarkable television career. Long before Tom Barnaby, Nettles had already spent a decade as the leading man of the detective series Bergerac, with other appearances stretching from A Family at War to the 2015 version of Poldark. After decades spent solving fictional crimes, Nettles has ultimately found something his characters rarely enjoyed: a peaceful retirement. Barry Jackson as Dr. George Bullard. Barry Jackson was 59 when he became Dr. George Bullard, the pathologist whose examinations of murder victims regularly provided the crucial forensic clues Tom Barnaby needed to solve his cases. Bullard became one of Barnaby's most dependable colleagues, and Jackson remained with Midsomer Murders throughout much of the John Nettles era. By the time he joined the series, Jackson was already a veteran performer with decades of experience across British theater, film, and television. In 2011, around the same period that Nettles departed, Jackson also left the series. As he grew older, the demands of the profession were becoming harder to maintain, while Bullard's role within the series had also changed. It seemed like the natural moment to bring another long chapter of his career to a close. No one could have known how little time remained. On December 5, 2013, only 2 years after leaving Midsomer Murders, Barry Jackson died at his home in North London at the age of 75. Away from acting, he had maintained an exceptionally private family life with his wife, Denise, and their 6 children, keeping that side of himself largely separate from his public career. Jackson, nevertheless, left behind an extraordinary body of work. His credits included Doctor Who, Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, Ryan's Daughter, and the landmark television drama Kathy Come Home. By the time of his death, he had spent roughly 6 decades in the profession, a quietly dependable character actor whose face became familiar to generations, even when audiences did not always know the name behind it. Neil Dudgeon as DCI. John Barnaby. Neil Dudgeon faced the difficult task of taking over a series that had already been successful for 14 seasons when he became DCI John Barnaby, Tom Barnaby's cousin, and the new chief detective responsible for solving Midsommer's seemingly endless murders. He was 50 when he officially took over as the leading man. Yet Midsomer Murders was not entirely unfamiliar territory for him. Dudgeon had actually appeared in the series years earlier, playing a completely different character in a 2000 episode. The pressure of replacing John Nettles, the man who had been the face of Midsomer Murders for more than a decade, weighed heavily on Dudgeon from the beginning. He has spoken about worrying whether viewers would accept a new Barnaby, and whether falling ratings might put the future of the entire series at risk. Longtime fans had spent 14 years with Tom Barnaby, and convincing them to accept someone new was never going to happen overnight. But Dudgeon gradually accomplished what initially seemed almost impossible. Rather than trying to imitate Nettles, he gave John Barnaby his own personality and eventually established himself as the new face of the series. In 2026, at 65, Dudgeon continues to lead Midsomer Murders. Away from filming, he maintains a quiet family life with his wife, BBC radio producer Mary Pete, and their 2 children, keeping himself largely removed from the celebrity spotlight. Long before Midsomer became his professional home, Dudgeon had already built a varied career through productions including Life of Riley, Messiah, Common as Muck, and Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason. That experience ultimately prepared him for the greatest challenge of his career, not simply replacing a popular actor, but convincing millions of loyal viewers that there could, after all, be another Barnaby. Neville Phillips as vicar/priest. The familiar figure of a vicar appearing at church services, funerals, and other solemn occasions around the villages of Midsomer Murders was often played by Neville Phillips. He first appeared in the series at 71, bringing exactly the quiet dignity and seriousness needed for some of Midsomer's more mournful moments across several seasons. Those recurring appearances represented only a small part of a remarkable career that lasted for more than half a century. Phillips was a veteran British character actor whose credits stretched across generations, including classic television comedies such as Are You Being Served? And You Rang, My Lord? As well as David Lynch's acclaimed 1980 film The Elephant Man. After such a long career, however, advancing age gradually began to take its toll. During his later years, traveling to locations and handling the physical demands of filming became increasingly difficult. Phillips gradually reduced his workload as his health declined, even though his attachment to acting remained strong after decades in the profession. Following several years away from regular screen work, Neville Phillips died in December 2017 at the age of 90. His passing brought to an end an extraordinarily long journey through British entertainment. More than 50 years of quietly dependable work from an actor who could make even the smallest role feel completely at home on screen. Jane Wymark as Joyce Barnaby. Jane Wymark was 45 when she became Joyce Barnaby, the patient and endlessly supportive wife of DCI Tom Barnaby. Joyce provided a sense of ordinary family life amid Midsomer's extraordinary number of murders, and every now and then, something she noticed or became involved with even helped point her husband toward an important clue. Wymark remained with the role throughout the entire 14-season John Nettles era. As the daughter of celebrated actor Patrick Wymark, Jane had grown up with a famous theatrical name, but Joyce allowed her to establish an identity entirely her own with television audiences. Yet the popularity of the character gradually became limiting. After playing the same wife for 14 years, Wymark decided to leave Midsomer Murders in 2011, acknowledging that such a long commitment had restricted other opportunities and that she was ready to move beyond being identified primarily as Barnaby's wife. Leaving the series allowed her to return more fully to the world that had always mattered deeply to her: the theater. In 2026, at 73, Wymark maintains an extremely private life away from celebrity culture. She has been married to Paul Howson since 1992, and they have 2 sons, while Wymark herself has largely stayed away from social media and the publicity that accompanies modern television fame. In fact, long before Joyce Barnaby made her familiar to millions, Wymark had already earned recognition as Morwenna Chenoweth in the original 1970s Poldark. It was a reminder that she had been a serious actress long before Midsomer Murders arrived, and helps explain why, after 14 years as television's dependable Mrs. Barnaby, she was finally ready to reclaim a life beyond Midsomer. Jason Hughes as D.S. Ben Jones. Jason Hughes was 34 when he took on the role of D.S. Ben Jones, the dependable right-hand man who served under both Tom Barnaby and his successor, John Barnaby. For years, Jones became one of the most familiar faces in Midsomer Murders. But few viewers realized that the role came dangerously close to becoming Hughes's last. By 2013, his physical health had reached a breaking point, forcing him to make the difficult decision to leave Midsomer Murders and concentrate on recovering. The punishing filming schedule often meant working 10 to 14 hours a day, frequently outdoors in the cold English countryside. Over time, that relentless routine left him severely exhausted, overwhelmed by stress, and struggling with the psychological effects of such an intense workload. It took 4 years before Hughes felt strong enough to return, eventually making a guest appearance in the series in 2017. During those difficult years of recovery, his greatest support came from his wife, actress and designer Natasha Dahlberg, and their 3 children. Today, Hughes is 54 and remains close to his family and has chosen a much quieter way of life, helping him maintain the balance that had been almost impossible during those exhausting years on the series. Outside Midsomer Murders, Hughes had already made a strong impression as Warren in the hit television drama This Life, and later demonstrated his range again in Marcella. Together, those roles proved that his career extended far beyond Ben Jones, and that he was capable of escaping the police detective image that had followed him for so many years. Laura Howard as Cully Barnaby. From a young drama student to a married woman building an adult life of her own, Cully Barnaby, the strong-minded daughter of Tom and Joyce Barnaby, seemed to grow up alongside Laura Howard herself. Howard was only 19 when she began playing the character, but starting an acting career at such a young age also meant making sacrifices during some of the most important years of her life. Throughout her youth, Howard constantly had to balance her education with the demanding filming schedule of Midsomer Murders. Spending 14 years associated with the same supporting character eventually created another challenge. After leaving the series in 2011, she found it difficult to secure the sharper, more demanding roles she wanted in order to prove her range. Rather than remain trapped by Cully Barnaby, Howard turned much of her attention toward British theater, hoping to establish a new identity away from the character that had followed her since early adulthood. During that search for a life beyond Midsomer, her personal life also went through a shorter chapter. Her marriage to actor Elliot Cowan began in 2015 but ended amicably not long afterward. By 2026, at 48, Howard keeps an extremely private life, devoting much of her time to theater while still occasionally taking part in events and gatherings connected with the loyal Midsomer Murders fan community. After leaving the series, Howard also continued appearing on British television, with credits including Call the Midwife and Casualty. Although she never again remained with one television character for as long as Cully Barnaby, she continued building a steady career, proving that the role which accompanied her through the first years of adulthood did not have to define everything that came afterward. Daniel Casey as Sergeant Gavin Troy. Sergeant Gavin Troy brought Daniel Casey to the attention of British television audiences when he was just 25. Awkward, enthusiastic, and constantly trying to prove himself to his superior, that was Gavin Troy, Tom Barnaby's first sergeant and trusted assistant in Midsomer Murders. But at the height of his popularity in 2003, Casey made a bold decision. Still relatively young, he left Midsomer Murders because he feared becoming permanently typecast as one particular kind of character. The price of that decision was not small. Walking away from a successful television series meant giving up the security of regular work, and Casey went through difficult periods afterward as he searched for new opportunities, bringing considerable uncertainty and financial anxiety along the way. During those more difficult years, Casey married Eloise Beaumont in 2005, and the couple had 2 sons. The marriage eventually ended in divorce several years later, although they remained on good terms and continued working together to raise their children. As of 2026, Daniel Casey is 53 and lives a relatively peaceful and private life, maintaining the clean professional reputation he has built over many years in the industry. After Midsomer Murders, Casey continued appearing in some of Britain's biggest soap operas, including Coronation Street, Emmerdale, and EastEnders. His career ultimately proved that the risky decision he made while still young, although followed by years of uncertainty, did eventually lead him toward a steady life beyond Gavin Troy. Fiona Dolman as Sarah Barnaby. Unlike many of the central characters in Midsomer Murders, Sarah Barnaby is not a police officer. She is a local school head teacher and the wife who shares her life with DCI John Barnaby. Fiona Dolman was 41 when she took on the role, becoming an important part of the new Barnaby family introduced after John Nettles left the series. Then, in 2012, Dolman's private life took a completely unexpected turn. Soon after the end of her marriage to Martin Curry, which had lasted from 2001 until 2011, she discovered that she was unexpectedly pregnant at the age of 42, following a brief relationship. Becoming a single mother in her 40s while continuing to manage the demanding filming schedule of Midsomer Murders brought enormous pressure. Dolman suddenly had to balance a continuing television career with the responsibility of raising a child largely on her own. She made it through that difficult period and built a stable life with her daughter, Madeline. Now, at 56, Dolman remains part of Midsomer Murders, having earned admiration from colleagues and viewers for the resilience with which she has balanced motherhood and a long-running acting career. Long before Sarah Barnaby entered her life, Dolman had already built years of television experience. She was well known for playing Jackie Lambert in Heartbeat, and later appeared in The Royal Today. That solid foundation gave her the experience to weather major changes in her personal life without losing the career she had spent years building. Nick Hendricks as DS Jamie Winter. Nick Hendricks was just 31 when he stepped into the role of the young detective sergeant Jamie Winter. Joining the main cast from season 19, he brought a fresh and youthful energy that Midsomer Murders needed after years dominated by generations of veteran performers. But Hendricks soon discovered that maintaining that energetic image came with its own price. The public attention surrounding his appearance meant keeping himself in excellent physical condition, particularly for the more demanding chase and action sequences. Maintaining that athletic look required a strict fitness routine, adding another layer of pressure to the already demanding schedule of a long-running television series. Fortunately, amid the demands of his career, Hendricks found stability in his personal life. He married actress Jessica Ellerby in 2019, and by 2026, as he turns 41, the couple remain happily together. With a shared enthusiasm for fitness, sports, and travel, they have maintained a remarkably private and scandal-free relationship, despite both working in the entertainment industry. That sense of confidence also came from the career Hendricks had already built before arriving in Midsomer. His earlier credits included major productions such as Netflix's The Crown, Legend, and Captain America: The First Avenger. Those experiences gave him a strong foundation for taking on a leading role in one of Britain's longest-running and most demanding crime dramas. Annette Badland as Fleur Perkins. Annette Badland was 68 when she became Fleur Perkins, the sharp-tongued, witty pathologist who rarely seems disturbed by even the most unpleasant murder scene. By the time she arrived in Midsomer Murders, Badland was already a veteran performer with more than 5 decades of experience across stage, film, and television. That confidence on screen stood in sharp contrast to some of the difficulties she had faced throughout her career. For years, Badland dealt with harsh judgments surrounding her appearance and body shape in an industry that placed enormous pressure on actresses to look a certain way. Especially during her younger years, those attitudes could affect the kinds of parts she was considered for and forced her to work against assumptions that had little to do with her actual ability. Badland overcame those barriers through sheer longevity and talent, gradually establishing herself as one of Britain's most respected and recognizable character actresses. In 2026, she is 75 and remains a much-loved source of humor in the more recent seasons of Midsomer Murders. Away from the cameras, She has shared a long and stable relationship with fellow actor David Hatton for more than 3 decades, despite the couple never feeling the need to marry. That determination to push beyond other people's expectations ultimately produced an impressive body of work. Badland terrified EastEnders viewers as Babe Smith, appeared as May in Ted Lasso, and built credits ranging from Doctor Who to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. After decades of being judged against conventional ideas of how an actress should look, her career became the strongest possible answer. Talent could keep opening doors long after those old prejudices should have closed them. Kirstie Dillon as W.P.C. Gale Stevens. W.P.C. Gale Stevens brought a younger, more modern presence to the Midsomer police station. And Kirstie Dillon was around 32 when she first stepped into the role. Although Gale was never one of the series' biggest characters, the part gave Dillon greater recognition among British television audiences and made her a familiar face during the later years of the Tom Barnaby era. After leaving Midsomer Murders in 2011, Dillon entered a much quieter period in her acting career. Rather than fighting to remain constantly in the spotlight, she increasingly devoted her time to causes beyond television, particularly raising awareness of mental health and campaigning against violence toward women. She has also spoken openly about difficult periods of stress and emotional struggle while dealing with the pressures of the entertainment industry, showing a willingness to discuss experiences that many performers prefer to keep private. By 2026, at 50, Kirstie Dillon maintains an extremely low public profile. She focuses much of her energy on social causes, while only occasionally returning to acting, deliberately keeping herself away from celebrity gossip and the constant attention of the entertainment press. Outside Midsomer Murders, Dillon also appeared in British television productions including The Bill and Holby City, alongside other drama work. Hers may never have been the loudest career in British television, but that seems increasingly consistent with the life she chose afterward, quiet, private, and focused as much on helping others as on remaining in front of the camera. Tamsin Malison as Kate Wilding. For 4 seasons, from season 14 through season 17, Tamsin Malison played pathologist Kate Wilding, joining Midsomer Murders at 37. By then, she already had considerable television experience, with notable roles in productions such as the medical drama Bodies and the popular comedy series Teachers. After 4 years on the series, however, Malison gradually realized that the demands of filming were taking too much time away from her family. In 2015, she made the firm decision to leave Midsomer Murders and restore some balance to her life. Rather than continuing to pursue acting at the same relentless pace, she stepped back from the spotlight and explored work beyond regular television, allowing herself to escape some of the pressure that had accompanied the profession. That decision gave Malison more time for the life she had built with her longtime partner, well-known actor and comedian Keith Allen. The couple have been together since 2005 and have a daughter. Their relationship has endured for more than 2 decades, despite Allen's famously colorful romantic history before they became a couple. Now, Tamsin Malison is 52 and lives a much quieter life in Stroud, Gloucestershire, with her family. Far removed from the demanding filming schedules that once dominated her time, she has maintained an elegant and remarkably private public image, avoiding the scandals and publicity that so often surround the entertainment world. Gwilym Lee as D.S. Charlie Nelson. From a police sergeant in the quiet villages of Midsomer to legendary Queen guitarist Brian May on the big screen, Gwilym Lee's career has taken one of the most remarkable turns of any actor to emerge from the series. He was 30 when he first stepped into the role of D.S. Charlie Nelson, remaining with Midsomer Murders for 3 seasons. Leaving the security of a successful television series to pursue bigger opportunities was a considerable gamble. Lee went through months of uncertainty, unemployment, and the familiar pressure of auditioning without knowing where the next job would come from. Then the biggest opportunity of his career arrived. playing Brian May in the 2018 Oscar-winning phenomenon Bohemian Rhapsody. One film suddenly introduced him to an international audience and transformed the direction of his career. After surviving that uncertain period, Lee gradually found greater stability in both his career and personal life. By 2026, at 42, he keeps his private life carefully protected from public attention, maintaining the polished and professional image that has followed him since his breakthrough beyond British television. And Bohemian Rhapsody was not the end of that transformation. Lee continued building his international profile with a major role in the acclaimed series The Great. His journey ultimately proved that the gamble he once took by walking away from a secure television job had paid off, turning a familiar Midsomer detective into an actor recognized by audiences around the world. John Hopkins as Sergeant Dan Scott. Sergeant Dan Scott, the confident London policeman transferred to the unfamiliar countryside of Midsomer, received one of the strangest exits in the series. His disappearance was explained with little more than a reference to him being ill, immediately fueling rumors that John Hopkins had fallen out with the producers. Hopkins had been 30 when he first took on the role. The truth behind that sudden departure was far less dramatic than the rumors suggested. Hopkins left because the workload had become exhausting, and more importantly, he realized that the demands and style of long-running television were not entirely compatible with the theatrical career he wanted to pursue. Rather than a bitter backstage split, his departure was a deliberate decision to move toward the kind of work that suited him better. After Midsomer Murders, Hopkins found greater stability both professionally and personally. He married actress Suzanne Stanford and built a quiet family life away from the constant attention surrounding television fame. Today, he is 52 and continues working across theater and professional voice acting, following the path that his decision to leave the series helped make possible. That choice ultimately led him back to his real passion. Hopkins established a substantial stage career with the Royal Shakespeare Company, while also moving into an entirely different field through voice and performance work for major video games, including Hitman and Horizon Zero Dawn. What initially looked like an abrupt departure from Midsomer Murders instead became the beginning of a career much closer to the one he had wanted all along. Manjinder Virk as Dr. Kam Karamor. Manjinder Virk entered the traditional English village world of Midsomer Murders as pathologist Dr. Kam Karamor at the age of 40. She became one of the relatively few British Asian performers to take on a prominent role in a series that had long been closely associated with a very traditional image of rural England. That difference was not always warmly received. Virk faced scrutiny and prejudiced reactions from some more conservative viewers, forcing her to work even harder to prove herself and establish Kam as a natural part of the Midsomer world. It meant overcoming the kind of invisible barriers that many of her white colleagues had never been required to confront. Virk moved beyond those challenges to build a stable career both in front of and behind the camera. In 2026, at 50, she is married to director Neil Biswas, with whom she has 2 children, and the family lives in London. Alongside acting, she has continued writing and directing while keeping her personal life remarkably private and free from the scandals that so often surround the entertainment industry. A talented writer and filmmaker in her own right, Virk has also built an impressive body of work beyond Midsomer Murders, with projects including Murdered by My Father, The Capture, and Trigger Point. Her career has ultimately become far more than the story of one pathologist in a long-running detective series. She has established herself as a storyteller capable of shaping stories from both sides of the camera. Toby Jones as Dan Peterson. Standing only around 5 feet 5 inches tall, Toby Jones spent much of his early career fighting against an industry that did not immediately see him as conventional leading man material. At 33, he was still accepting relatively small parts, including researcher Dan Peterson across 4 episodes of Midsomer Murders. His appearance became one of the obstacles he had to work around during those early years. Instead of waiting for traditional leading roles, Jones continued taking smaller character parts and gradually built his reputation through performance rather than image. It was a slow process, but one that eventually proved that his acting ability mattered far more than whether he matched Hollywood's conventional idea of a star. That persistence was eventually rewarded on an extraordinary scale. Jones portrayed Truman Capote in Infamous, provided the voice of Dobby in the Harry Potter films, became Arnim Zola in the Marvel Universe, and appeared in major productions including Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and The Hunger Games. Along the way, major awards and nominations confirmed his transformation from a familiar supporting player into one of Britain's most respected character actors. His success has been matched by unusual stability at home. After more than 25 years together, Jones married Karen Jones in 2014, and they have 2 daughters. Today, Toby Jones is 59 and remains one of Britain's busiest and most admired actors. Sam Hazeldine as Simon Dixon. Sam Hazeldine was 33 when he stepped into the role of Simon Dixon, Cully Barnaby's boyfriend who would eventually become the husband of Tom Barnaby's daughter. The role became another important step in a career Hazeldine was determined to build on his own terms, despite being the son of the respected British actor James Hazeldine. The Hazeldine name could sometimes feel like an invisible burden, forcing Sam to work even harder to establish an identity separate from his father's reputation. Then came a far more painful turning point. In 2002, James Hazeldine died suddenly, leaving Sam to deal with a devastating personal loss at a time when his own career was still developing. The emotional impact contributed to an extremely difficult period in his life and temporarily disrupted the momentum he had been trying to build. Hazeldine eventually found his way forward by taking on darker, tougher, and often more morally complicated characters. It was a direction that allowed him to create a screen identity very different from his father's. By 2026, at 54, Sam Hazeldine has become a familiar face in both British and American film and television, regularly appearing in major international productions. His credits have grown to include projects such as Peaky Blinders, The Witcher, Slow Horses, The Raven, and The War of the Worlds. More recently, his international profile has risen even further through major fantasy television roles. After years of carrying both a famous surname and the pain of losing the man behind it, Hazeldine ultimately succeeded in building a career unmistakably his own. So that's the Midsomer Murders cast in 2026. After nearly 3 decades, some familiar faces have changed beyond recognition, while others are sadly no longer with us. Which cast member's transformation surprised you the most? And who was always your favorite? Share your memories in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more then and now stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.